get started. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to start with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? Second.
I'll second.
Anyone have comments, questions, anything you want pulled?
I just have a question on number 3. Can you just explain, is that for everybody? Is it number 3? Yeah.
After school.
Wait,
It's
what's
the middle
the,
school learning center, so it's for middle school students, but it's anyone who needs academic support can go in there for just after school.
like any subject kind of thing? Because I know like some
That one is-
teachers stay after, so this would just be.
This
on
is
top
more
of-
general support, so there are some like subject specific opportunities, but this is more general support, homework help type thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, all in favor? Any against? Go see spotlights out there for your entertainment. President, Vice President's report. The only thing I've got is went to the school board meeting dinner. The speaker was really about AI, focused on what districts are doing. It was interesting for a little bit, and then I think they kind of got to the point where it was not sure what to do. The one thing they did recommend, though, number one is to not have, I don't know why, but not have an AI policy, but to put AI in all of your. So if there's a policy about, I don't know, cheating, you put AI in that policy instead of having something separate that may not match up. People wouldn't be able to use it. So that was probably the biggest thing. The other thing that came up actually more from the audience was everyone's focused on AI. Are you going to can you just go and tell AI what you want as a report? It writes it, you send it in, you're done. But one of the things that became pretty apparent was there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the more of the part where AI interacts with the students. Are there any students that are vulnerable to whatever? Have any students been, that kind of use of AI versus cheating on tests and things? So it was an interesting conversation, but it was, I'll just say a little lax on data, backing it up, but it was interesting. And most of the districts, actually, I'd say all the districts were really just trying to figure out what to do. Which AI environment they're being set up. Should they be talking to their students, not just the AI they can use in school, but the AI that they can get to the minute they get home and get to ChatGPT or whatever. Anyway, that was pretty much the entire night was focused on that. Other than that, I think that's all I've got. Chris, you got anything?
No, I'm sure Alan and Caroline will talk about the sports successes, so I'll leave that to them. Good job.
All right, so we have student board members
Yeah.
first.
Did you guys?
Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Tonight we'll be giving an overview over some exciting events and moments that happened over the course of quarter one. Quarter one just ended along with the fall sports season. During quarter one, students had a fun pep rally with the middle schoolers coming to watch. Fall sports team were announced and fun games were played in the high school. Students also had a homecoming dance to attend along with football games. Many football games were filled with support from the Blazers students and family and friends. An athletic dance was formed by Mr. Hamill, team leaders, and the sports in the high school to help grow with Millbrook sports programs. The Council of Students will work with Mr. Hamill in efforts to, help promote high school sports. Furthermore, students attended an informational assembly about one of the indications of infant safety. Recently, Emily Brassler, a 2023 alumni, spoke with our 11th and 12th graders regarding post-secondary options, specifically about the military academies. She attends the Merchant Marine Academy. We are very thankful for her visit and the advice she shared with our students. It's always nice to see alumni come back, especially to give our current students great advice. Just yesterday, the SAD Club had an assembly about the importance of driving safety as they spoke about wearing seatbelts and driving at the speed limit. Interactive held a Purple Pinky project for students who donated $2 for tongue twister. Pinky painted purple. The funds raised were donated for polio eradication. The music department had 3 students, Kate Colette Chong, chorus, Mabel Morello, trombone, and Archer Ryan tuba, accepted to the 2025 Area All-State Festival at Arlington High School. Congratulations to those students. The art club attended a field trip to the Museum of Modern Art in the city, and these are just a few of the fun events that took place over the course of quarter one. Students are just beginning quarter two, and we're excited to see what they continue with the rest of their school year. Thank you.
All right. Any questions?
Oh, are you presenting as well?
Oh, okay, so I'm sorry. I had some questions. Thank you for that amazing summary. That sounds so fun. I was just curious if there was anything that was brought to your attention of like students might need more information on, or maybe had ideas to improve on, or like tools that could be given to do any of those things that you highlighted.
Well, I just thought, like, Nina can also chime into this, just more interaction between more like administration and the board with the students, just more, I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect that I've heard from the students, and just more connecting and being told of what's going on so they can understand where the board and where the administration is coming from, instead of just assuming why they're doing it. And I think if we bridge that connection, that there will be much more of along the lines of a better flow.
Good.
How,
I think-
I
Well, go
was
ahead.
gonna say, how do you think that maybe can be bridged?
I think that we could see more administration involvement of a few like ideas can be like, coming more to the board, the pep rallies, more interaction in general, just being a presence in there and not necessarily just, saying what things across building, but just being there, being present and being active in that sense of being present.
Is there, you mentioned, the students trying to have a better understanding of where the board or the administration is coming from regarding decisions without going into, fine detail. Are there 1 or 2 general areas where you feel like you need more information? Is it instruction? Is it athletics? Is it extracurricular? Is it all of the above?
I think it can be pretty vague when it comes to that. I think in all areas, from like lunch or sports or classes, so on and so forth, there could just be more of an understanding and more input into why they're doing things, so students can have an understanding of why they're doing it, and they're not just assuming, oh, because they're the big bad need board and administration, they're doing this. So they can understand from their point of view of why they have to do it, understand the restraints due to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Go.
So I have a very long report, that is in here, and so multiple shout outs from different administrators that I included in here about the Veterans Day breakfast. Not even was able to attend this year, but it was really awesome. It is every year, but it was great because our eighth graders got to sit at tables with veterans and hear firsthand experiences of what it was like to be in the military. There were old photos that were brought, there were videos that were shown in small groups with veterans that, you know, participated in some of these military exercises, and the kids were able to ask questions, which I think is amazing. And then as a larger group, the whole middle school came to the gymnasium and they were able to ask questions of the veterans who were able to share their experiences. And some of the questions were as simple as like, what was your favorite MRE? And so that was funny. And then there were other questions that really delved into like, what made you join the military? And they were able to hear about drafting, right? That was a reality for some of the folks that visited. So different than the kiddos' experiences today. Some folks enlisted and they were able to tell their reasons why and how it changed their life. It was a really great experience. It is every year a great experience, but this one I think it was a little unique because it wasn't in the cafeteria, but I think it kind of worked out well in room 48 because it was a little more like everyone was a little bit closer, and I think it was like a little bit more like intimate that they were able to connect with the veterans and ask those questions, and maybe it felt a little safer than like a big huge room full of people asking questions. So I thought it was an overall great experience. We did also have a couple of other opportunities for kiddos. Our Model UN Club met with Jim and Diane Lubin from the Rotary to talk about their experiences with the UN. There's lots of information about the instructional trainings and opportunities that teachers are having here. Additionally, I did give some dates of what's coming up in the near future, but I did want to talk about some of the work that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks in a couple of different venues. Thursday and Friday, I was up at the New York State, the New York State Legislative Liaisons Council, where we were speaking with folks from the governor's office directly, speaking about all types of things that are impacting education right now. Conversations ranged from, you know, the typical foundation aid formulas and how our budget is created before their budget is released, and how do we fund these unpredictable or how do we create our budgets with unpredictable funding sources. We talked a little bit about the federal funding. This was the State Legislative Liaisons Committee, so not necessarily something that they have a direct impact on, but really a concern about. We talked about the electric buses, which there was one of the superintendents from Rockland County who was present, was talking about how their school district, their one school district, will require more kilowatt hours to charge their buses than an airport, based on some of the newer studies that are happening. And so when you think about the magnitude of that, when there's 700 school districts, and the electrical grid just can't do this. And so our push for the governor's office was, we're all trying to comply with the legislative mandate at this point. The reality is that even if we could purchase these buses, which you can't because they're about $500,000 right now, even when you purchase them, they don't come, right? So many districts are waiting for them. And in addition to all of that, we're now hearing from the power companies that this actually really can't happen. So, you know, with all due respect, stop talking to us and like get the players in the room who actually have to make this happen, who are saying they can't make it happen, right? So that was sort of a big shift in the conversation. It was very interesting to hear the reaction of like, oh wow, they're actually saying that. So it's like, how have we not thought this through, right? Like, how has this not had a conversation already? But that was kind of where that was. There was conversations about public school funding that is following students who are going to private charter school or public charter schools, and how, you know, charter schools have their own opportunities to recruit and or accept versus non-accept. They can send students away if they are not doing well. One very interesting thing is as long as the student is enrolled in that charter school on Beds Day, they keep that funding for the year. So they can decide that you're not performing well enough, you go back to the public school, but they're keeping the per pupil allocation for that child for the entire school year, even though we then as a public school would be educating them. There was tons of conversations about the tax cap calculation. A lot of it really focused on you need to give us exclusions to this tax cap because the rates of inflation are X and our tax cap can, only allow us to levy this much new taxes. And so that math doesn't really work. And that every year we are trending further away from being solvent. And it's a universal problem. It's not a Millbrook problem. It's not a Dutchess County problem. It's a problem all over the place. So there was conversations about that and about how, some districts are in the millions of dollars of deficit going into next year's budget. And how you can't just tell us all this money we used to give you, we're giving you nothing. And you can't tell us this overnight and you can't tell us this after our budget is set and voted on. So those were good conversations. They were very receptive, I will say, for all the good it will do. At least we had an audience and a voice. We talked about other opportunities for expense-driven aids, really to focus on things like mental health and school safety, the things that we know to be important that we all absolutely have to do and are putting money towards, but it's all coming out of this same bucket. And, at some point the well's going to run dry. And what do we do if we can't levy new tax money? And so there was a conversation about having relief for any of the new mandates and how there has to also be a funding conversation. So yes, you are in a position where you can create mandates, but then you also need to follow up with how you're going to support school districts making this happen. Because as you know, many of the mandates that come through are unfunded. We did revisit the cell phone legislation, and it was an interesting conversation because it seems that the governor's office wants to now double down and further restrict the storage options for students. And so their explanation for how students not being able to store them in their backpacks is because they're not district purchased backpacks. And so one gentleman from a school district with a high level of poverty said, well, actually, in my district, they are district issued backpacks. So does that make it an acceptable storage option? And they were like, well, no. And so, we pushed back a little bit and said, well, there's actually nothing in the law that says that they have to be stored in backpacks. So I'm just a little bit confused. It was a very interesting dialogue. And at one point, our attorney from NISCUS was like, you got the win. Districts are doing this, kids are complying, you need to just move on now. So it just seems like there's going to be some kind of update coming down, which could potentially end up costing money. And for what reason, right? For the spirit of the law, it's happening. I don't know. So that was a very interesting piece to the conversation. There were conversations about civil service and teacher certification and how there's just not the educator pipeline that there once was, and how there has to be some kind of reform around that, because you can't tell us that we cannot bring people out of retirement and not help us figure out solutions for how to get new people certified and into the field. As life has gone on, the benefits of the tiered retirement system has made it more challenging. I don't know that you're going to convince me that somebody at 20 or 21 is thinking about when they get to retire or how long they're paying into retirement. I don't know if that's all the issue, but I think that there's other things, other factors that you can go to school and get a degree in math and you can enter teaching field and, yes, you can have great benefits and, decent salary, but you can also go work for MetLife with that same degree and start off at 6 figures. And, so we're competing with a lot. So that was an interesting conversation. Civil service is pretty universally complicated and a mess. And so, that conversation went on for a while, about the restrictions and really trying to kind of open that up and make it more of a user-friendly environment to hire and retain, high-quality people. The process is long. It doesn't always end up with, the best candidate for the job. And so there ends up being turnover in positions that there doesn't necessarily need to or intend to be. And then there was other conversations that I think were very well received about funding for special education and how we are seeing increasing numbers of students who need restricted programming. And like for a small district like us, that's really impactful in our budget, because if we don't have the students to open and operate a program here, we are then sending them out. And that becomes a whole other expense. We talked about preschool special education and how there's just not enough evaluators and providers, and this is falling on the backs of, public school districts without any reimbursement, even though that is supposed to be funded by the county. So it was a great conversation. So that was Thursday and Friday of last week. That was with the governor's office. On Monday of this week, I had an hour-long conversation with Senator Hinchey's office about many of the similar things that school districts are facing in Dutchess County. Some were specific to Millbrook, some were more broad about like, this is what the surrounding districts are facing. There was conversations about modifying the school district's calendar again to include more holidays. And so we said, listen, we're not trying to be insensitive, but if you're going to do that, please understand that from September 1st until Regents Rating Day in June, there's only so many days, right? And if we have to have 180 school days and we have to meet 900 or 990 hours, depending on elementary or secondary, like there has to be relief somewhere, right? So either leave it to local control to decide what their calendar is going to look like, or give us the flexibility of, either we have to have 180 school days or we have to have 900 hours or 990 hours. And so I don't know where that will go. But there was so much conversation about the public versus non-public in the area of athletics. And so I feel like this is where things are bubbling up the most, because we're seeing it really kind of throughout the Hudson Valley. We're seeing these non-public schools who are winning at the postseason level and taking opportunities away from public school students. And the big sort of divide comes from, we have a finite catchment area. We can only have students attend our schools and participate on our teams if they are Millbrook residents. And I mean Millbrook school, school district residents, and that's it, right? So our enrollment opportunity is however many students live within the confines or the contours of our district. There are other schools, and I won't talk about any local schools, but there are schools down in Westchester that specifically have students from outside of their physical geographic catchment area, and even in some cases outside of the state. And so when you look at our beds enrollment, right, and then you look at theirs, realistically, you're talking about, less than 1,000 students versus 400,000 students, right? Because they are literally recruiting. They're not recruiting, of course, they would never do that. That's not allowed. But they are drawing from, right? An infinite amount of school districts. And so there's a lot of conversation. This has been brought to the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. I will not say who, but in a conversation that I was directly involved in, they said, so wait a second, the private schools are taking students from the public schools and they're playing sports there? Well, yes. I had no idea. With all due respect, where did you think private school students came from, if not the public school districts? No answer. So on a very general global level, I feel like people who are in positions to make decisions are a little bit disconnected from what's happening, boots on the ground. And so one of the things that I'm dreading because it's gonna be 7 p.m. tomorrow night in Harrison, so it's gonna be a late night. But I'm really looking forward to is we have a legislative forum tomorrow with senators and legislators from the geographic region of Putnam, Dutchess, Westchester, Rockland, and Orange. And so they will all be in the room with as many superintendents that are able to attend from the Lower Hudson Council. And we will be discussing all of this with them tomorrow night in small groups. And so hopefully some of these things start to become seeds of change, hope. I don't know, but something has to give because the funding structure of the way public schools are expected to run at this point is it's getting more and more grim, really.
But yeah, it's odd because it's been years of saying the same thing over and over. I just had a conversation with someone from the state, and you get the react. Oh, really? That's what happened. We've told you 10 times, from the school buses to the sports programs to the tax cap, what the problems are. And the next time we see you, you say, really, that's the problem? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Just getting inundated from all angles right now. Because like I said, in this week alone, I was at the legislative liaisons for the state. I had a call with the National Advocacy Network, which is the national organization for federal legislative change. I had the Lower Hudson Education Coalition meeting, and tomorrow I have the Lower Hudson Council meeting. And so in all of those organizations that I'm a part of, we're having the same conversations with people. I don't know if you just saw that there was an announcement of the dissolution of the Department of Education and how that's being broken up. So more information to follow on that.
You mean the federal?
Yes, federal. Yep, sorry, federal. And so bits and pieces of education is sort of being doled out to other departments, which, I don't know what that means yet, right? Like we've already seen a cut in our federal funding, which again, I said this to, people from the state and they're like, so what kind of funding did you get from them anyway? I'm like,
Your meeting tomorrow night, is this like the first time that that's happened?
so it's interesting. It's not the first time that it's happened. It is the first time that we have said, please don't send staffers. Like
Okay.
you owe it to us to come hear us yourselves. It is the first time that it sort of happened on our playing field, so to speak. In other situations, it's been like Zoom calls, which I participated in, but it's very much let us tell you, and this is really let us tell you. So it will be a very respectful conversation. We've prepared for it as an organization to make sure that it's a very unified message and that it's a very directed message on the things that we need them to hear most at this time. So we've done a lot of work as an executive board, but then also we met with the membership. I wasn't there because I was in Albany at the liaisons. But the executive board met with the membership on Friday to really carve out the focus of this conversation. So, all we can do is keep advocating for kids and for saving public education at this point, but something has to change with the funding.
Well, to make it simple, maybe you should just explain it to them. Public education is a house of cards, and it's not if, it's when it's going to collapse. And if you're in office when it collapses, and so
There's just irony. I think the charter school conversation was maybe the one that most people were really like, on Friday. Because it's sort of like a very interesting like circle or feedback loop that folks can take a voucher and go to a charter school and have that funded with public education money. right? Because someone somewhere has decided that that's gonna be better for their child, right? We can argue that if you want to, whatever. But it's the public school superintendents and boards of education that have to approve the charter school as a substantially equivalent education. So like, how does that work, right? And if you're willing to throw money at improving education by way of these charter schools that don't have to meet any of the same mandates that we do, that don't have to, they're not subject to the same accountability standards as we are, any of that, why are we the ones who are charged with determining their substantial equivalence, right? Because you're saying we're not doing it right, so go to them, but we're the ones who are actually overseeing them. And SUNY, that has nothing to do with anything, is the ones who are approving their existence. So it's this very convoluted, seemingly nonsensical structure that we're fighting against, and you know, people with deep pockets are behind them.
Thank you for fighting the fight.
We're trying. We're trying.
You good?
I'm good. Any questions about anything?
Thank you.
All right, Jack.
So this is the annual, we have to report annually on attendance, so there will be information about attendance from last year, but then also, one of the big roles that Mr. Gilroy plays in his Dean of Students role is to work with students who have otherwise had, poor attendance or need improvement in their attendance. And so he's got some data just in the first couple of months of the school year on how things are already improving in our schools too, so.
Well, thank you. Good evening, and I welcome you into the PDF that has been posted on the board docs as well. I invite you to follow along. I'm going to go through a couple of the slides here, but for the interest of time, I don't want to take everybody's night because I can get ahead of myself, begin talking a lot about this stuff. I'm very passionate about my work here, what I'm doing. So for those unfamiliar, I have served as the 8th grade social studies teacher the past 3 years here, and I'm currently in my first year as the Dean of Students for both the middle school and high school. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is attendance and spearheading that in the best way possible. So if you take a look at the first slide there, it's the vision statement. And so when I stepped into this role last year, I spent the whole summer really thinking about like, why is attendance so important and why does this matter? And so I've shared this vision statement not only with the parents, with the students, with the faculty members, but now also here with the Board of Education as well. And I think it's important for all of you to understand where I come from and why I think attendance is so important. So I will read it for you as it states, as Dean of Students, I believe that showing up is the first step towards success. Every day a student is present is a chance to grow academically, build meaningful relationships, and develop confidence. My role is to ensure that every student feels supported, valued, and equipped to thrive. Because when students are here, they're building their future. And so what happens is we have so many amazing things that we can offer here at Millbrook Central School District, so many amazing faculty members as well as staff. So when we have our students here present in the building, that's when we are able to give them all of our support. And so I want to go through a little bit of this data here that we have with you. So why attendance matters, right? As I just said, when students are here, we can teach them, we can support them, we can engage with them. So perfect, thank you. Right there is exactly, we can go to the next slide there. So I think it's really important to highlight the exact definition that we are looking at of chronic absenteeism. So as the New York State Education Department defines, it is when a student misses 10% or more of the enrolled instructional days. This includes excused and unexcused absences. I'm going to get more into this, but I wanted to highlight this definition because I think it's really important for us to understand. And as I was doing some of my research as well, I went nationally. I then focused more specifically on the state of New York. I then honed in on Dutchess County, and then I looked specifically at Millbrook and over the years. And one of the things that was really significant to me that I thought was worthwhile to share with you is that Dutchess County has seen a decrease by 4.7% enrollment in the past 5 years. So across Dutchess County, there is a number of students that are not attending public school education anymore either. So as we continue now to the next slide, why is this important? Why am I sharing this information with you? Well, chronic absence is associated with negative outcomes, which include low academic achievement, school truancy, dropping out, delinquency, and substance abuse. So obviously, those are all things that we would like to target here and that we are looking to help our students with. Additionally, I think it's also really important for us to recognize the students that are here, that do come to school every single day, and it takes away from them. Teachers are spending time trying to work with the students and get them caught up on work and get them an assignment and spend time working with those students. And then all the people that are here every single day, sometimes maybe they happen to fall a little bit behind as well. And so this graph that you see here, what it highlights is that New York State kind of falls right in the middle nationally about where our chronic absenteeism rate is, which is really interesting that New Jersey, our neighboring state, is the lowest in the country for chronic absenteeism. Now, continuing along, right, we're talking about the national chronic absenteeism rate. I think it makes a lot of sense to us that since the post-COVID era, absenteeism is significantly higher. A lot of people just happen to be a little bit more sensitive, understandably so. When they are sick, they keep their children home. Students may not want to go to school, get other people sick, which makes sense. So this graph on the bottom right here, if you take a look, the highest orange bar that you see, that is 2022. Okay, this is the year following COVID. Chronic absenteeism on a national level was at its highest. It is now on a downward slope. Well, the positive news that I'm here to share is that it represents the exact same thing here in Millbrook. So above that, we have all the way on the left, 2022, God bless you, where our absenteeism following COVID-19 was at a record high for Millbrook, and it has been on a steady decline since then.
Jack,
Yes.
I just want to make sure that far left bar, which has 16,954, that's supposed to be 22, 23?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
The trend is great. I just want to make sure
Yes.
that's the real trend.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. No, just making.
Continuing down to our student absences by grade, this is some historical data here. Onto the next slide. One thing that is important for us to note that our senior class has the highest rate of absences across the district. Now, one thing that I'm pleased to share as well is this makes sense. Those are students who are going to visit colleges and who we take the necessary measures to ensure that they are caught up as well. But I think that this is some important information to share as well. In speaking with Mr. Cabello and Mr. Sipe as well, we broke down some math, and it's really interesting because you could stay there because I will get there in a sec, but the math is really interesting because when you break down the numbers for the entire district, each student represents 0.2% for the overall attendance. Now, I'm going to get more into this in a little bit, but what this means is when a student is absent, it affects our district as a small community way more significantly than it may a neighboring district that is significantly larger. And as we dive into that a little bit more deeper as well, what we will find out is there are so many families that are connected across the whole district here, that people have multiple kids, that these families have cousins and they have friends in the schools around here. So, it's not like a bug goes around and just one student is sick. Well, it actually is going to impact a really large portion of our overall district. And then as a result, our data is impacted by this. So to combat, as I was saying, some of this, right? Like, how can we limit this? Ms. Nyardi and I had attended the Dutchess County Local Health Summit a few weeks back, which was at the Hyde Park Library, and we are working with some local agencies to see what they are doing at the level to try and combat some of this. So some of the things from this were really interesting regarding chronic absenteeism. Well, what are some of the factors there? So economically disadvantaged students are some of those who are more absent than not. Students who get sick a lot are absent more. Housing and instability are some of the factors that play a role in chronic absenteeism as well. And the graph on the next slide here is going to highlight exactly the percentages. So on the bottom line, we have all public school students. And then above that, we have those who are economically disadvantaged public school students. So chronic absenteeism rates are significantly higher for students who are economically disadvantaged. But yet again, I'm really proud to share that on our next slide, we show where does Millbrook fare across the neighboring towns. So I've highlighted here in the middle Millbrook, and the best way to describe this graph, looking at chronic absenteeism rates for the 2023-2024 school year, is you want your color to be on the lighter side, okay? So Millbrook is on the lighter side. The left just shows chronic absenteeism rates. The right side shows that for economically disadvantaged students. Okay, so Millbrook is significantly on par, if not better than some of the towns in Dutchess County when it comes to chronic absenteeism, especially that for economically disadvantaged. As we now look at our current data wall, these are just some data points that I think are maybe interesting and thought-provoking that you may want to look at a little bit more. But for example, what day of the week has the highest absence rate, right? I think it makes sense that Thursdays and Fridays have a higher absence rate, okay? These sometimes families going away on vacation or whatever that instance may be. At the bottom left, we have the number of students by days absent, okay? So this is for the middle school and high school right now currently. And again, what I think is really important to share is that when one student gets sick or something here, it spreads and they have a significant impact on our overall data. One other thing that I really want to highlight as we move on to the next slide as well here is that we have students who have unenrolled from our who are attending another school, but not unenrolled their paperwork from Millbrook. This is going to really impact our data as well. So as we look at some of this regarding our chronically absent students, those numbers are going to be a bit skewed as well. There are also certain instances, which I will not get too in depth, but of a family who may be attending a long vacation in which we knew about, and we have taken all the necessary steps to help and ensure them a proper education while they're on that, but it's still going to be reflected in our data here as well. But overall, any student who has their own story, we are taking all the necessary steps to ensure that we can get them to be here in our buildings and receive those great things that we offer. As I continue on to our next slide too, right, I think tying this all together now, why this matters for Millbrook, why is attendance so important? Well, because lost instructional time just means that students are falling behind. This is going to be hard to catch them up. And especially in the higher levels, I'm sure our students here can speak to this, but when you are taking Regents classes, you miss one day, it's automatically going to be ever more challenging to try and catch back up, especially when you have 3, 4, 5 Regents level classes or AP classes, whatever that may be. So we're doing everything we can to try and tackle this attendance issue. That is a national thing here. Continuing on, our strategic framework for improving attendance. This is something that Mr. Sipe and Mr. Cabello, myself, along with the other administrators, faculty members, teachers, everybody is kind of all in on and trying to do our very best. So communicate consistently with families. This is something that we have set up different protocols in place. I will continue on and touch base on some of those more. But for example, every single day a student is absent, they will now be receiving, they get a robocall home from the school. And Mr. Cabello, Mr. Syke, and myself have been working on ways in which we can get somebody to call home as well to every single student who is absent, check in with those families, make sure everything's okay. And then once that reaches a second absence, then we will have an additional phone call that will come from somebody else, and it's going to move along the chain of commands. We have had meetings with students, so this is a direct conversation that happens with myself. So if there is a trend, so as you see at the bottom, early intervention is one of the things. When a student is absent 3 times, I have a meeting with them. When they are absent 6 times, we call the parents in. We have a meeting with the students, with myself, with one of the building principals, with the parents as well, so that we can set up a plan that's collaborative to try and make sure that we can do everything possible to help these students. Parent education, that's part of that meeting there. Trying to explain to some of the parents as well, when we touch base with them at home too, we express, why is it so important to get your child here? What are some tools and strategies that we can provide you to help get your child here? Because some parents have found that to be very helpful as well. And then recognizing and positive reinforcement. I think this is something that's really been beneficial thus far. So Mr. Cabello and I at the middle school level especially have had some of these gentlemen's circles where we can connect with students, have conversations with them, celebrate them for coming to school, for doing all the awesome work that they have been doing, especially if that seemed to be a challenge for them at the beginning of the school year. And as we continue on to what we have done, is in the blue box there at the bottom. I really want to highlight that restorative justice piece. This serves as an alternative to the punitive disciplinary measures. So especially for some of these students at the middle school, this has been a real success. Maybe getting to school was an issue with them, so we've worked with their parents to ensure they can get on the bus, that they can get up early, and not just, hit them for a detention at, 6 latenesses to school because they had a tough morning or whatever it was, but rather have these conversations with them, find out what's going on, what might be the root cause of their tardiness or their absence, and then work with them and their families in a collaborative manner. So that's been something that's been really successful as well. These kind of positive conversations, recognizing students for coming in as well, especially if that's something that's been struggling for them in the past. And one of the last things I want to really highlight here, there's a number of things. So if you have questions, I fully understand, but I'm not going to touch on all these because, as I mentioned, I can already get ahead of myself in speaking. So happening here at Millbrook, the daily attendance, I spoke on this, team meeting. So this occurs at the middle school level, which has been really successful too. And here, utilizing the collaborative problem-solving methods to work with families and create a plan of support. Sometimes the teachers, myself, Mr. Cabello, whoever may be attending these team meetings, which occur every day, call students in. We work with them. Hey, how can we work with you to get to school? What might be a piece that you want to try and incorporate if that's going to help as well? And that has been a huge success. So I shout out the middle school team for all their work in that. The digital communication and classroom access, this is something that probably just seems second nature now, but it's been a huge success for students that are at home. Teachers are pretty much all using Google Classroom, which is huge. And then the Edmentum piece as well, that's still being rolled out a little bit, and that's going to be a huge way to help students who are maybe not able to get to school for a day or two, who are going away on a vacation. And for parent-teacher conference in the top right-hand corner, the team members, the high school teachers as well, have reached out to some of those families that they really want to speak with, that may have had some issues with chronic absenteeism or even just, hitting that threshold number of 3. We're working with them and getting those students and parents to come in for a meeting. And then lastly, the monthly parent newsletter in the bottom right there, right? This is now across every single building, so it's not just for me here at the secondary level, but this has also been huge because our building principals have been really successful in communicating with parents ways in which that they can help get their child to school. The email for letting the faculty know, hey, my child's not going to be in today, they're sick. This is great because it allows everybody to know, like, we're all on the same page. We can communicate with the teachers, get your child the necessary work. And then the last thing that I want to do here before I finish off is kind of highlight some of the work that we have been doing, because this extends far beyond myself. This is all the efforts of the faculty, both at the middle school and the high school. This is the teachers, this is the secretaries, the guidance counselors, and the building principals. So on the left-hand side, we have our absences by month, and we're comparing 2024 to 2025. And so what we see, I understand that November is only at 18 days, and we still have a couple days left, but I think you will see a staggering number and a decrease in attendance. This has been something we've really been proud of and we're really working on. And so I like to, give credit where credit is due, and that is all the faculty members at the secondary level working every day to make that possible. And so those numbers there, just to highlight, overall through the first 3 months of school, we have had 404 fewer absences, which totals 26% through the first 3 months. So I appreciate all the work and effort that's been done by those people. And to finish off, right, like, why does this matter? Because it's not just about reducing the number of absences for our students, rather it's connecting to our district's mission. And what that is empowering and inspiring our students. And when we can get them here, we can allow them to better connect with our mission here and go on and do the amazing things that our students and Blazers do each and every day. All the data and attendance I have for you tonight, and I'm sure I can continue to go on, but as I started and prefaced, for the sake and interest of time, I apologize.
No,
Don't apologize.
I'm glad you did it. So, first of all, you don't think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Just that.
Poison now.
Thank goodness the decrease is so big, so far in November, right?
But, as you tear into this more and more, what'll be good for the board and for the administration is doing root cause on, hey, there's 5 kids that we lose once a month, or there's 4 kids they're excused, and then look at those root causes and say, if we had a system to do this, or if we had something else that would do that, we think we could get that number lower. Because if I look at the charts, the numbers are coming down, but they're also, very, very inconsistent with whether they're up or down. And it would be great to know. And I mean, the board's interest, or the board's role in this is to basically, hey, I want to do these things. I need, a bus that I can drive around and pick people up, whatever it is, right?
Oh, that's the electric one.
Yeah, it's gotta be electric, can't go on the dirt roads. But if we had the ability to say, if we make this investment, we think we can do this. And if it works, great. If it's not, we're not spending a bunch of money, on something that's not working. So the more you dig into this, the more hopefully you'll be back telling us, there's a group of 5, and I think I can get them by whatever the method is, whatever the, system.
We'll get them.
All right,
We'll get them.
Yeah, I think it's great. A lot of the kids that miss, they need to be noticed, they need to be appreciated, they need to be understood, they need to be supported. And I think, when we're not doing that, we're kind of doing them a disservice. So yes, it's good to bring them in school and everything else, but I think a lot of times they just need someone to talk to, you know, and building that bond. And maybe it's not you, but the administration, the teachers, everything else. I think it's great.
I'm encouraged to see that you're looking at it from a lot of different angles. I think that's the way you're gonna make progress. The next couple of half days coming up, I'd be curious to see if attendance rates on half days are lower than attendance rates on other days, and if that's the case, get feedback from the students, ask them more. Do they not view those days as valuable as other days? And think about it.
Cause you wonder if it's, you know, working parents. Is it easier to, you know, ship them off to grandma's house for the whole day as opposed to getting somebody to take them off the butt? Like, it could be, you know, something like that. So, yeah. No, this is wonderful.
And that was part of the conversation too about the calendar, was
Yeah.
having the holidays that fall, like even just, we just had, you know, like the Veterans Day, right? So it's like when it falls, where it falls, if it's like leaving like a dangling Monday or dangling Friday, like a lot of times parents, I think, are more understanding of like, go to school for just one day. So, you know, those things too, we see a dip in attendance, not just Millbrook, but, you know, other districts are complaining of that too. So it's like, those are some of the other reasons why the calendar becomes really challenging when there's, you know, days that are being recognized in the middle of weeks and, you know, those types of things. It loses momentum for kids and routine. And like you're saying, half days become very challenging. And it's unfortunate, but these are realistic problems and challenges that families are facing in trying to get their kids to school.
I'm curious that, you said earlier in the presentation that, there's been a correlation to after COVID whave you know, maybe some parents feel like, oh, there's 5 kids sick, I'm gonna keep my student home. Have you been able to sort of dig into that and like how many is that? Is that a big percentage? Is that steadily dropping?
I would say so, yeah, and I mean, it's really challenging to track some of the exact numbers and why some students are sick, because if a parent doesn't contact us to let us know as a school that they're keeping their child home because they're sick, it goes in differently than an unexcused absence. So trying to get that information is something that I think starting Q2, and now that we got our you know, feet wet a little bit in this, we're going to be able to dive into more. And then, you know, at the end of Q2, be back here with even more information, and that'll be something we'll keep an eye out for as well.
Then again, if there's, I mean, I'm not telling you to spend money, because that's like, we don't do that. If like even the email system that is, you know, how you send the note in, if you need a, you know, click on these things, you know, unplanned, fell down the stairs, you know, whatever it is, so that you can get that information. That's the kind of, hey, if I had a more granular data, I could probably focus, you know, drop this by 2 or 3 or whatever it is.
You know how quick in the mornings? I mean, it used to be, you wouldn't get the automated message till like 11 o'clock and your kid would be in Jersey by then. Have they gotten better as far as I know? They got to take attendance and everything, but God forbid it was something that you had no idea, you know? I think they've gotten a lot better on that, but I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
about a second period, it goes out
Okay.
at the end, I believe, in, so it's fairly quick.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And these questions I'm gonna ask you are not because you should have had them today. So, okay, it's
Yeah.
thinking for the future. I'm wondering, about gender differences. I don't know if you have any idea
I
off
don't,
the top of your head.
to be quite honest
That
with
would
you, I
be,
do not.
that would be interesting to know, right?
Absolutely.
And then to also parse out, I know the definition of absenteeism, chronic absenteeism does not parse out excused and unexcused. But for our own purposes, are we seeing, are our absences more what's the percentage? Do we tend to have more excused absences? Like they're
Tim-
valid, truly valid?
Well,
Versus-
define truly valid.
I understand.
Define
I
truly valid
understand.
because an excused absence
You
is
never really
excused by
know.
a parent, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are some parents that are honest and forthcoming, and I think there are some parents who,
Yeah.
you know, they don't want it on their record as an unexcused absence, so.
I also think it's changing the, not just the people are sick and they want us to keep them out of school because of COVID. I think it's almost changing what people got deemed acceptable after COVID as far as, yeah, it's online, you can miss it, it's not as important to go. And so I think that's gonna take some time too, just to
Yeah.
make the parents realize, no, it is important here.
Yeah.
Which you're doing.
And the reason for the chronic absenteeism not separating the two is because if the child is not here, they're not benefiting from instruction, right? So we recognize that there are truly times when it is prudent to keep your child home, right? That is what you should do because they are sick, and will make others sick, right? So we get it, but the reason that it's not separated out is because the time that you are not in school is
You're
you're not
receiving-
benefiting from
Right.
instruction, and so that puts you at risk for not being successful. So,
And I was also thinking about sports.
Hmm.
Is being involved in a sport or an extracurricular activity a protective factor? Because if you are absent, you're not going to practice, you're not going to the game. I don't think you're also not going to the extracurricular activity, right? So, isn't there for secondary a certain time that the
Yes.
student needs to be in to do any of those? So it would be interesting to know if those activities are serving as protective factors.
I think
Or
as your
student.
clubs get stronger, as your
Yeah.
sports get stronger, people wanna come in, they don't wanna miss
Exactly.
them, they don't
Well,
wanna be able
that's
to not
the
attend a dance,
assumption.
they don't wanna have to, so.
Exactly.
Stronger you kind of make everything around it, I think that gonna
You would think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the correlation you mentioned in the beginning, high school students being the ones to be more chronically absent. If there was any correlation with graduation rate in that regard? Of those who are more chronically absent in high school, does that affect our graduation numbers or the ones who graduate or don't?
I have not come across that data yet necessarily. It's something that I can absolutely look more into and at our next board meeting, have some information for you on that.
Thank you. And then about, you had mentioned about, some students are reflected to be chronically absent because they're still enrolled in our district, even though they don't attend here. Can you explain a little bit more about that? And does that number, when we get the total enrolled, like, I think, for example, 172 in the middle school, does that reflect those who are not attending, but they're still enrolled?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing this up because this is something that blew my mind as well as I stepped into this role. And so, for example, we have students who have moved and attend another school district now, perhaps in New York City or another state. And we cannot legally unenroll them from our paperwork until we receive the paperwork from that school. So some of those schools, they do not, if it's in another state, for example, a student moves to Florida and starts going to school there, well, the school in Florida is not sending their paperwork and they might not mandate that. And so we legally, by New York State, cannot unenroll them from our school tool. So that student is in our data and they're getting marked absent every single day. And so that's why I tried prefacing that some of our data is actually skewed a little bit because we have students where that's the exact case, that they have moved away. We have not received the unenrollment paperwork from wherever they may be.
needs to be a little asterisk at the bottom.
Right.
That's not fair.
well, right, but, and so the state doesn't actually differentiate,
No, I
so
know,
they will
but
count
for his
against
data
our.
and seeing improvements and everything else, I mean, what if there was a 5 or 6 student increase on that, then it would look like. You know,
Right, but
all
and
your
there
numbers are.
could be, right, like, just think of like a family moves away with 3 kids,
No, I
right, in
know.
a school,
I
in
know.
like a small school district, like, no
But
problem.
we can't hold that against him and what he's doing. He
No,
could be
no,
making great
I-
strides and one
yeah,
family
no.
could kill that. That's
No,
all
I
I'm saying.
agree, but
Thank you.
if we don't ever unenroll
Sure.
them, it will eventually count against
That's why you gotta
graduation
fly to
rate for
Florida
that
and
cohort.
get the paperwork.
I was gonna say, do you have to do that? Do you have to try to chase it down?
Oh, yeah. You call the school and you call the school and you call the school, you get through and they say, we'll send it over, and they don't send it over, and you call the next day, and that's, but that,
Continue to get state aid for these students? Even though they're not
Probably
here?
not if they're chronically absent.
That's what I'm saying, because if they are, then why bother getting unenrolled?
Well, we can't enroll them until we have proof of a records request from
Yeah,
somewhere else,
I
just
got
because of accounting for children. But once they move out of state specifically, like you can call CPS, they're like, all right, I don't know what to tell you. They live in Florida.
Sorry, my last question is, and maybe I have missed it, what is the number one reason for chronic absenteeism in our district right now? I know you said it was not economically disadvantaged, but is there one reason that stands out right?
well, again, chronic absenteeism does amount for excused and unexcused. So if a student is sick or has a doctor's appointment, it is still technically falls under the category of chronic absenteeism. So that does play a factor into it. I don't have the necessary data for every single reason of why all the students are to know exactly what it is. It's something, again, I can look more into for the next time I'm here. But I do know that for the specific number of students that are chronically absent, what I can tell you is each of them are fighting one of their own battles, and we're working with them to try and target and help them in whatever way possible.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Adam.
Okay, athletics, everybody like to talk about sports. Great fall season. I will say we started out in the middle of the summer in August. I was a little bit concerned. We did have the turnover of the high school nurse vacating the position, so I was really in panic mode until Deanna Chandler, who is a middle school nurse, just completely stepped up through the family ID process. And I really can't say enough about how she handled it and really stepped up to the plate and did a great job. It was very seamless in terms of the registrations. So I just wanted to make sure that I started out by saying that. And also our coaches, another tremendous job this fall. We had great participation numbers, very few issues. Our students were wonderful. Our student athletes were wonderful all season. But also just to reiterate our coaches and the effort that they put in and the time that they put in, just have a great group across all of our seasons, but specifically this fall, again, our coaches did a really nice job. I also would say thank you to the administration, including Caroline and Elliot and Cheryl, Amy, John Mullins as well in the maintenance department. Everything that I've needed has been answered. Any questions I have, any support that I've needed or guidance, very available for me. So I do appreciate that. Additionally, our support staff members, our maintenance department workers, wonderful, our event chaperones that, you know, give their time to be there. Our business office personnel, Janine Kasak and Kathy Mattis in the office. I know Jack does a lot of work with them now, taking on the Dean of Students role, but they still support what I do on a daily basis as well. And also our bus company, specifically Jennifer Cardinal, and obviously all the bus drivers as well, but Jennifer Cardinal has done over the last 3-4 years since she took over as the coordinator, has just been wonderful in terms of giving us what we need and meeting any of the challenges, because sometimes there's lots of last minute changes and things that happen. And she's just been very flexible in terms of, I'd have to say it was a really clean fall in terms of buses being on time, everybody getting to where they had to go. So I would just extend a great big thank you also to Jennifer. On the intramural side, as part of the initiative that was introduced as the athletic director position this year, at the intermediate school at Alden, Brianna Contreras had stepped up. We had over 50 students sign up for the intramural program at Alden. So we ended up bringing on Sandy D'Onofrio, came on board to help out Brianna just because of the sheer number of students. We had as you can see in the report, we had 62 students that participated in Alden Place intramurals. Also for Joe Carbone, has been very consistent with the middle school intramural program as well. Our booster club also has been really supportive. Tremendous amount of involvement in the concessions and creating care packages for our athletes. If they're traveling during sectionals and things of that nature. I've been working with them and having conversations with them about and doing as much as we can to get involvement and get the booster club really going. And I have to say they're making a really fine effort, and we're looking to get just more parent involvement on each of the sports teams levels in terms of the booster club. So we're really going to try to push for that. Okay. So by the numbers, I have that there. 206 student athletes competed this fall at the JV and varsity levels. At the JV, varsity, and modified levels. We had successful seasons. Our football team was very successful. They were the #1 seed coming out of the regular season. Unfortunately, lost in the semifinals of the sectionals, but they had probably their best season from going from not having a team to being the #1 seed at the end of the regular season was really I think it was a good feeling, mainly for our student athletes who have been here over the years and have struggled. You know, even when we came back after not having a team for a couple of years, our records weren't always that successful. So this year, I believe we were like 6-1 or 7-1 after the regular season, and heading into the postseason, caught a bad break in the postseason with a player injury. So that really hurt us. Volleyball, again, very strong, made it to the sectional finals. That obviously the program remained strong. Both our soccer teams had very good seasons, both the boys and the girls. The girls, we did have a merger in place with Weavituck. So Weavituck sent, I believe it was 3 soccer players that came down for the varsity team for girls soccer. Our varsity boys golf team, really strong numbers this year. We had 12 to 14 players that were participating and heading over to the Millbrook Country Club. And again, the country club has just been phenomenal in terms of their support and what we do there, allowing our team to go over there, and it just seems to get better and better every year. So, want to certainly put a shout out to the Millbrook Country Club for allowing us to do that. At the modified level and the varsity level for football, our numbers were up in terms of just pure participation. We also had a couple of modified players that came from Weavituck that were looking to play tackle football from Weavituck that were participated on the modified team. That was the first time that we had done that this past fall. And okay. As Kimura had said, we did establish our Student Athletic Council. Looking forward to that. Fall's probably is by far the busiest season in terms of everything that's going on. So heading into the winter season, we have that group in place. So we're going to be looking to start to do some things. One of the things that I had mentioned to them in one of our meetings was that we would like to present a sports carnival. And thinking about this, I know that in the past, we've had conversations about how to get our younger students interested. And we've talked a lot about bringing, things onto campus like the Northern Dutchess Raiders and the cheerleading and all those things. And that's great. And I just had given it some thought, and the idea of more than likely putting our players into their uniforms for each of our sports that we have, and creating some type of an event where we can have the Elm Drive kids and the Alden kids come up and essentially create a rotation where they can go and learn about each sport and kind of interact, and almost like a mentorship type thing where hopefully we can get them excited. I've done that in the past, a lot of the programs that I've worked in. And I think that now that I have the ability to do this and really concentrate more time on the athletic director role with Jack coming in as the dean of students. So I'm excited about that. I think that one of our main focuses for the Student Athletic Council, and we'll start planning for that as soon as possible. There also is there's a leadership conference that will take place in April up in Albany through NISFA, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. We're gonna hopefully look to send 1 or 2 representatives up there. I just have to get some more details on that through the section. Just touching again on our situation with Weebituck. Had a really nice conversation with a parent at the end of the girls' soccer season, and it really kind of solidified for me that, and confirmed for me that we're doing the right thing with trying to do this, because, she just was so appreciative that her daughter had the opportunity to play varsity soccer, and came up to me and was just so appreciative. And I was like, I said, listen, I said, the same thing holds true for our kids, because if you're, in certain instances, if we don't have students coming down from Weebituck, that we wouldn't be able to field a team. We have 5 wrestlers who are going up to Weebituck this winter. All 5 of those boys are tremendously excited about the fact that it's going to be a varsity season. So it's no longer a club. We're actually shifting over to a varsity season. And I think that's just great. And Weebituck has just been, it's challenging, but the transportation, all of the coordinating of everything, it does become challenging. But Rob Scott, who's the athletic director of Weebituck, and I are in communication on a regular basis throughout the season. And I would just, extend a thank you to Weebituck and let you all know that, this winter we do have the wrestling going up. We also have, we are hosting girls basketball. We have some girls coming down from Weebituck that are going to be on our varsity girls basketball team. Obviously, if we don't need to do the mergers, we won't. But in situations where we can, and we can work cooperatively with Weebituck, the wrestling merger, interestingly enough, Dover had approached both mainly Weebituck and us about joining the merger. So I guess wrestling, you're looking at about 15 wrestlers. So it was interesting, Weebituck had 5, we had 5, and then turns out Dover's got 5 or 6. So that's really the main reason why we decided that they were able to go to a varsity level sport this year. So the boys will have like about 7, I think there's 7 meets that are on the schedule. For right now, all of those meets will be at away sites till, us, Weebituck, Dover, however we have to come together, or whoever will be able to do it in terms of purchasing mats for one of our schools to be able to, for us to be able to hold home meets. So that would be something that might be in the future, a year or 2, we might continue to just do away meets until it's established that this is something that's really going to carry forward. All 5 of our wrestlers are sophomores, so we're hoping that some younger kids that are coming up out of the middle school will be interested. So it's not like we're graduating 3 or 4 or 2. All these kids are going to be here, and hopefully they'll have a good experience with that. I don't really have much else other than that it's been a very enjoyable fall. I don't know what it is, but I feel like this has been the best season that I've had here, just in terms of overall outlook on things. I feel like things are really heading in a good direction. It's really all I have for you tonight. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
I happen to go to the girls' soccer games. Otherwise I get in trouble. But I was just so impressed with the merger between Weebituck and Dover. The way they acted together, the way they came to, like, when there was a goal, the way they came together. They even had that, like a ceremony at I think it was the last
Senior night, yeah.
and they, Millbrook girls gave flowers to the seniors from Weebituck. I was so happy to see it go that way. I was talking with one of the board members from Weebituck, and I said, if that's what a merger is, that you're great. I mean, I don't merge with Dover because, we still have to fight somebody, but but no,
In anybody's book,
I was-
merger is not ideal,
Yeah.
but you're absolutely correct. That was in that particular case, that was wonderful. The girls really bonded together and they were a close knit group because they were together for the last 2 or 3 years.
I think that would be great if we had almost with anything, like seniors, juniors, going down with the younger kids. Cause I do remember hearing, it was maybe a year or two ago, like 5th or 6th graders talking about, it was girls talking about like volleyball. Oh, I don't think I'm good enough. It was one of those conversations where you're like, man, if you could get some of like the older kids to come down and talk to them and be like, look, you don't have to be this, incredible athlete like you learn when you go there. Just explain it to them about what the process is instead of thinking like, I played in gym, I'm kind of okay, but you could expand on that. I love it with anything with the older kids coming down and talking to the younger kids because it's a little different than the teachers or the parents talking to them. It kind of feels like they're getting like the skinny on it, They're getting the real truth. I think that's always a fantastic idea, having the big kids go talk to them.
Absolutely, 100%. And having them in uniform and the kids looking up to them is really what it's all about. And that what might trigger, something in a child that will drive them to want to be like, those student athletes.
I wanted to say, I echo all of the thank yous you threw out from like the bus drivers, the coaches, I completely agree. So I love a carnival, like I'm there already. I think it's a great idea. I think you already have your interest in the elementary school with 50, like intramural idea, absolutely wonderful. You 50 kids, so they're already interested, right? We already know that from the turnout. I actually think that this, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, disconnect might be from middle, Alden to the middle school or to modified, like the disconnect going into modified or going into JV, and then from there to the high school, which is why we have so many mergers. I also think, are those 206 athletes the same athletes going into all the various sports throughout the seasons? And if so, because if we have about, say, 400 between middle school and high school students, is that half of them? How do we reach out to the remaining portion outside of that 206 number to interest them in physical activity, not just to boost our sports, but like for their own health and mental and physical health? And in addition, for like the parent, you were saying to boost parent involvement in sports boosters. Is that outside of the parents of the 206 students? Is that to attend games? In what way are we asking for parental involvement? Is that something like the administration or the board can help with what's needed from what you're seeking from them? And I love that the parent was like, I really appreciate my child playing. I feel very strongly about that. That any child, not just my own children, should play something if they're really interested in it and do what it takes to get that. But are there ways where we can use our own students or encourage those numbers to increase so that we don't need a merger or we don't have to cancel sports like the volleyball team? I was able to attend the volleyball games. There was no girls soccer because there wasn't enough enrollment, so most of them joined volleyball. And then there was a great roster on the volleyball team, but how can we encourage it so that we don't have to cancel one thing that forces the kids to do another or just drop out? So I know that was a lot of questions and comments together.
No, and I think it all makes sense. And I guess, one of the answers I have is that just in terms of speaking about the last subject about the volleyball versus soccer and with the girls, it's really interesting that, 3, 4, 5 years ago, our girls' sports were through the roof in terms of participation and the success they were having. And right now, it seems like things have kind of flip-flopped and we have a lot more involvement and participation on the boys' side. And I think a lot of it's just the draw of what you're dealing with in terms of the students that are coming through in those particular classes. Like for this year at the modified level for basketball, we have 11 girls signed up. And in the past, we've had 20, or 18. So I was happy with that 11 based on the way that things were in the fall. But you have to also understand, like the volleyball team had a pretty robust roster, like you said. But our boys, we have 30 kids signed up. We have 30 students signed up for modified basketball. So this presents a challenge So what I'm kind of brainstorming with Mr. Carbone today a little bit about, our roster at the modified level will probably be 18. That's really the max for a modified coach to run a modified team. So what we're talking about doing is to create some form of a club, intramural club for basketball for these boys. If they're not fortunate enough to make the modified team, we'd like to have 2 or 3 times a week where we split the gym, where these modified girls basketball team can have half the gym, and then we can bring these kids in that have the interest in basketball if they're interested in doing this, and potentially run a club. And it would essentially just be another 30-session intramurals, just to keep them engaged, and they'd be done by the time the late buses went home. And it would just be an avenue for those students that have the interest, because this is the biggest. This is, it's a big number, 29, 30 kids. We have, so, and it becomes really tough at the modified level if you have to look at now turning kids away. And we don't want to do that. And getting to the first part of your question about, not having teams at the varsity or JV levels, a lot of it's just the pyramid effect with sports and the amount of the competitive nature of it. And, as you move on past, intermediate level and travel ball and town ball to the middle school level, fewer and fewer kids are now going to play because it just becomes more challenging. You get to the JV level and then to the varsity level. It just is the nature of the beast that, and I know that these 2 girls sitting right here are tremendously committed athletes. Like, these kids are really putting in an effort on all levels, whether it's across the board. When you get to a varsity level, you're practicing every day for 2 hours. On volleyball, maybe 3 or 4. So, my point is that I think, and then once they get to the high school, there's some other avenues that they might go off into, whether it's theater, whether it's other clubs and other interests that they have. But I think for the most part here in Millbrook, we're fortunate that we have a lot of kids that play sports here, and we do have a tremendous amount of kids also that play 2 sports, or some of them play 3 sports. I feel like it's a never-ending battle, and you're always trying to make it better. And sometimes I know, like 5 years ago, when we didn't have a football team, everybody was very disappointed about that, but we just didn't have the bodies. We didn't have the number of students that was necessary to have a football team, and to not have it was a terrible thing, because we have the beautiful facility sitting up there. But this year, being up there this fall was wonderful. The team was winning and everybody was in great spirits, and it was just a great experience. So, I mean, some of it's cyclical, but we'll keep pressing forward and try to continue with the intramurals and build that. Try to run through our student athletic council and try to utilize that in any fashion we can to get interest going. And the booster club also, and to touch on your question about the booster club, I think that each season, the parents that are involved in the teams, there are some of the larger districts, they will have a football booster club or a baseball booster club. They have booster clubs specific to each sport, not just an overall overarching booster club. So the idea would be that what we really would like to see in my conversations with the booster club leadership would be to see the parents of each sport want to become involved and try to support in whatever way the booster club needs to do that. And that could be from the care packages to the senior night celebrations to all of, anything that would go into enhancing, that could also be, like I know, like with the volleyball program, they run their tournaments, and the booster club is a huge part of that. They host the tournament, they run the concessions, they're there, and they make it run. And it's a tremendous asset for the program, and it makes the program stronger. So we would like to see that type of involvement across the board with all the different sports if we can. And it's challenging. It is challenging to get people to be willing to put their time, in, and sometimes people can do it, sometimes people can't do it. And I think some of that too is something that I can work on with our coaches as well. Sometimes our coaches, if they are, they're with, like, for instance, our girls soccer coach, Coach Olszewski, she did run the youth clinic, I think 2 years in a row. I don't know that she ran it this year, or she's planning on running it this year or not, but that was a big hit. What I could tell, we had the cheerleading group when we had Leah Cotman here. She did a cheerleading clinic that was really popular. So those are the types of things that, yes, and we can, we essentially run those types of things through the Booster Club, which is where the Booster Club becomes very valuable to us. So we really want to try to promote that and do the best we can to get people involved. But it is challenging.
Can I ask you, I hear you.
Yep.
How are the sports recruitments advertised? Because for myself, as a parent, I received an email to register. And then I did, and then I later received another email, like a reminder to register. But outside of that, like if I missed the email, outside of that, I don't know what happens in the school or how you advertise it to the students or parents that maybe are not checking their emails. So what avenues is that information?
Sure. So the emails are a big part. We have announcements in the mornings for the whole 2 weeks during the registration period. So morning announcements, afternoon announcements in the high school as well. The phys ed teachers are involved with letting the students know that registrations are open, so they see them on a daily basis. In some instances, they're coaching the team, so they're letting the kids know. But essentially that's what we do. And in terms of receiving the emails, it's a blanket email that we send out to all of the classes that, whether it's 7th and 8th, whether it's 9th through 12th. Once people register, you should receive some type of a receipt email from Family ID that tells you that you've successfully registered. So you should just disregard then the future emails, because I'll send out, typically we'll do one right at the beginning of the registration period. And the way that I've kind of adapted to this over the years and doing this for 8 years, we used to have a longer period for registration and it was really sloppy. I narrowed it down into a 2-week period now, where we open up on a Friday, we close on a Friday. And that's 2 weeks later. So you have to register within that window. So then I'm able to get send the emails out 2 to 3 to 4 times, send a final email maybe on that Thursday prior to, just to let people know that the registration is closing. So aside from that,
We also mentioned it.
the Millbrook, right?
And then like the newsletters and stuff, like you try to put it a couple of different places. The reality is that people also need to be good receivers of information. Like there's only so many places we can put it.
Is there a link on our website where you like that if you want to register for a sport or something like that?
Well, it wouldn't be because it's not open all the time.
But for just the registration period.
So it's a good question. And the answer is we do have the Family ID link on the athletic webpage. The actual registration process is handled by an outside vendor, which is the Family ID, or what's called Arbiter. So, but with what you're saying, it would not be a bad thing. And I think I maybe have done this in the past, was to create the top of our athletic page during that registration. I should probably take that email dialogue and the links and probably put that onto the athletic page. I think that would be helpful. That would be something that I could do.
Thank you. And you found that shortening the registration period time is more helpful?
Yeah, it is. It's going well. It's going well, I have to say, because I know that when I first took over this position, that was like one of the biggest headaches. And I know that was something that we even discussed at meetings when I came here, and shortening it to the 2 weeks and then just blasting it out. And to be honest with you, the kids are interested, and especially at the high school. The middle school, I understand more what you're saying about that, but the high school, most of those kids know what they want to do and what they're going to do. And they sometimes before the registration period will start, I'll walk through the building and have everybody ask, well, when does it open up? When are we going to be able to register? The other thing that I also do is I contact the coaches of all the sports, because a lot of times they'll have all of their, they might work off of certain communication apps with their athletes and parents, so that they can, and sometimes that's more compelling when a coach is texting or emailing and saying, hey, it's open, you need to register. And that's usually when the registrations come in quickly, when the coaches get involved.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna suggest maybe some new music.
That's always a challenge. That's always a challenge.
I actually did have, a couple of questions.
Yes.
The, modified basketball for, I mean, I think part of the discrepancy with the girls and the boys is also just demographics, that eighth grade class is so small, and both the seventh and the eighth grade classes are very boy heavy. I mean, it's like 2/3 or more of both of those classes are males. So, you just we can't like create more females out of nowhere, right?
I was thinking just if there's 20 girls on the volleyball team,
Right.
how if they would transition to basketball, what that look like. I understand that everyone has that interest, but what can we do to garner that?
Yeah, and I was thinking of your comment about girls soccer, there probably just wasn't enough girls to have volleyball and soccer,
And we
right?
did attempt to do a merger
Yeah.
with, we also attempted to merge with Weevutuck. I was gonna have the Weevutuck modified girls come down, but they only had like 2 or 3. They're in a worse position than we are. Their numbers are even lower. But I did make that effort, and we did try to merge that modified to have a modified soccer. And it wasn't in the cards.
Yeah. And for basketball, there's modified JV and varsity?
For both boys and girls, they'll be all
And-
3 levels, yeah.
How's the JV looking? Are
So
there a
our-
lot of
our-
boys?
So our boys teams will both have to make cuts. We have over 30 boys trying out for JV and,
Even for JV, wow.
yep.
Wondering.
On the girls' side, we have 17 girls signed up with 3 coming from Weevutuck, so a total of 20. So we'll probably even that around at 9 to 11 girls per roster. So they'll be smaller rosters than the boys roster, but you're still gonna have, hopefully 10 girls per team, depending on how the age groups work out. I think last year or the year before, we ran with 9 girls or 8 girls on JV, and it was fine, as long as you avoid injury and things like that. We wouldn't start the season if we didn't think we were gonna finish it. Like, I wouldn't start with 6, I wouldn't start with 5.
Yeah.
But if we have enough, and we have 1 or 2 girls who are also playing up from 8th grade to the JV level. So.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to offer a change in the agenda. To go to executive session, before we lose the people that are on the phone. Do I have a motion to move? Change the agenda?
So
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Any against? Very good, thank you. Nicely done. Thanks, Al.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Al.
Just if there was something.
Just kidding.
I was like, yikes, I didn't hear you behind me.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye,
Drive
girls.
safely.
Good night.
I'm the one driving, she's the one that's sitting in the seat.